Part, then we can now start the meeting. Good evening, members. First item in the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 5th of January 2016, which have been laid on the table for half an hour before the meeting. May I try to sign them as a true record? Thank you. I'll do that in a few minutes. There can't be any apologies for absence because we're all here. Any declarations of interest, please, Mr. Taylor?
None received in advance, Leader.
Thank you. Questions from the public. Mrs. Anne Cooper. Thank you.
Read that question.
No, I'm afraid not. The person must be here. We will answer it in writing. Thank you. Next question. The next question is from... No, quite clearly the rules are the person that puts the question down. Mr. Hyman, do you wish to ask your question? Thank you.
Is it on? Yes, on. Okay, thank you. My question relates to Farnham's town centre road system and the Air Quality Action Plan, and ask whether anyone knows what we're doing, as there are conflicting plans in place. For instance, the consented plans for the almost completed development on the old police station site, Hawthorne Lodge, indicate that a new pedestrian crossing will soon be installed in Longbridge, whilst the consented Crescent-Nicholson plans for East Street show traffic lights and 3 new pedestrian crossings at the Longbridge junction. The Council's Farnham Conservation Area Management Plan, the FCAMP, agreed by Council, proposes a shared space solution, and the Herald recently reported that Surrey are planning a mini roundabout there. And we appear to have a similarly confused situation regarding the main Royal Deer junction, for which the Council has repeatedly approved practical reconfiguration proposals to more than double both pedestrian and traffic waiting times, resulting in Crest being tasked with finding a different solution, whilst our MP and Surrey Highways have together been pursuing and claiming public support or public approval for entirely contradictory proposals. And we now find that the Woolmead planning application proposes yet another different design for the junction. However, Mr. Hunt's recent update in his end-of-year letter informed us that a practical solution is still being sought. And so it's difficult to know what the plan is for our gyratory system in Farnham, with at least 7 different plans either agreed or being pursued. And it's unclear quite when the interesting process of continually installing, uninstalling and replacing them all will commence. Our local plan, our Air Quality Action Plan and numerous major developments depend upon this. So if anyone knows what they're doing, can you please describe the current plan for Farnham's gyratory system and the likely timescales? Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Harman. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Hyman. I'm pleased that you've studied the Farnham options so carefully, but currently it's fairly clear what we are doing. Waverley's Air Quality Action Plan has regard for the traffic management, and this has resulted in traffic management modelling being undertaken. We're also, of course, monitoring the air quality in Farnham almost every day. The modelling work has identified some options that will work in traffic management terms, but has also produced some unexpected results that require further modelling work to assess the impacts and potential outcomes. Surrey County Council, the authority for addressing air quality issues, Highways team are currently conducting modelling in line with previous WBC work to ensure future decisions produce the most appropriate solutions. Waverley will continue to work alongside Surrey County Council to develop options that will work to improve air quality within the borough, but as yet no definite decisions have been reached in regards to traffic management. There is an extant planning permission for Brightwell's regeneration, which includes off-site highway changes at the Royal Deer Junction and elsewhere in the town centre. We're not currently aware of any other significant plans for changes to the highway network in the town centre which have reached a level of agreement.
Thank you very much, Councillor Adams. That's the questions. Mr. Hyman, thank you. You've had the answer. The answers. You've heard the answer, and that is the answer. Forward programme, members, on page 13 to 16. Has anybody got any changes to make? Anything to withdraw? Thank you. Is that agreed? Thank you. The General Fund Budget. Members, there's an additional paper dated the 29th of January with one further recommendation, 3A, that you'll be in possession of. Otherwise, as set out in the agenda paper, Councillor Ramsdale.
Thank you, Leader. I think as you're all aware, items 6, 7, 8 are the reports concerning our budgets for 16-17, respectively the General Fund Revenue, the one I'm just about to cover, the General Fund Capital, and then the Housing Revenue Account. With respect to all three, I should like to thank the Joint Committee, O&S Committees, for looking at the detail, and their comments are included in the report. I should also like to thank you, the members of the Executive, and the Chairman of the Licensing Committee for your participation in reviews, not least the Star Chambers. This has not been a straightforward budget process. However, we have managed to produce proposals for a balanced budget without cutting services. I must warn you that it will be yet more difficult next year. Finally, I must thank my predecessors who established the Star Chambers and introduced the spend-to-save approach, etc. I can assure you that without those, we would not be in the financial position we currently are achieving. So, specifically report at item 6, starting on page 17, covering the General Fund Revenue Budget. Well, the two headlines are a 52% cut in our revenue support grant from government, with this funding all but wiped out next year. However, we have had some increases in new homes bonus. And secondly, we're proposing to increase council tax for the first time in 6 years, up to the maximum level allowed by the government. This is unavoidable in the light of the severe grant cut if we are to ensure that we can protect frontline services and continue to respond to residents' needs. But despite that major grant cut, we are proposing a budget with some very good news items for Waverley's residents. There are no cuts to services from financial constraints. The budget maintains the overall level of grants allocated to community organisations at the same level for the 4th year running. We have maintained full revenue funding to meet the costs of capital investment plans, and the majority of new homes bonus is to go to invest to save schemes. This is, of course, in line with council policy. The budget increases the spending on the planning service to manage the significant additional demands from customers. The budget includes an extra £48,000 to maintain Waverley's owned, with a D that is, ditches to help with flood resilience and to manage tree risk, areas we've had a lot of concern expressed from residents. The budget also includes additional funding to strengthen our environmental enforcement and litter picking on key roads, again things our residents have raised with us. We are conscious that we have recently implemented a catch-up inflationary increase in car park charges. Yet at the same time, we've increased our spending on maintenance and improvement of our car parks, with particular focus next year on High Street, Hazelmere. The savings and growth proposals identified at Star Chamber are included in Annex 4. With regard to council tax increases, the government announced that councils cannot increase their council tax by 2% or more. However, it is possible that in the light of the severity of the grant reduction, the government may allow a £5 increase for each Brand D equivalent property. A numbering of neighbouring councils have this option currently. We don't have confirmation yet, but it is proposed to recommend this increase to council if Waverley is able to do so. The medium-term financial strategy is a key document that brings together all of the council's financial plans and considers the future pressures, risks and opportunities. This document is set out at Annex 1 from pages 1 to 38. The page I would draw members' attention to is page 33. This sets out the forecast over the next 3 years for the General Fund. It shows that we have a significant budget deficit projected for 2017-18 of £1.3 million, which is mainly due to the further government grant cuts. We will be starting work on meeting this challenge immediately, especially as many of the ideas going forward have long lead times. The annexes provide the detail, and the pack, including the full budget pages, have been circulated to all members. There is a range of recommendations on page 23. I would point out recommendation 6, which is to earmark funds for potential land acquisitions. This proposal supports Waverley's treasury management and asset strategies. We are yet to receive our final grant settlement from the government, but we should hear this week. We are hoping that they have listened to our concerns and will improve the position for the council. We will report any changes as a result of the announcement to council on the 16th of February. I have one matter to update members. I think Leedy already referred to it, which is a report that since this report was dispatched, the staff pay award talks have been concluded. I therefore propose that a new recommendation 3A is added to page 23 of that the pay staff award of 1% from 1st of April 2016 be approved. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you. Pleased to second.
Leader, there are 10 recommendations on page 5 of the agenda or in the report on pages 23 and 24, plus the new recommendation regarding the pay award, and I commend these to the Executive.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for that, and also for all the papers that we have here, which are very informative. At their 1.95% increase after the 6 years, that equates to, for a household, under a penny a day. And for anyone who gets the reduction for living alone, it's about a halfpenny, half a penny a day. So it's not an absolutely huge amount that we would be adding to the council tax bill for the services, 110 or so services, which I think are excellent value here in Waverley. Colleagues, any other comments, please? Councillor Adams.
I'd like to congratulate the portfolio holder for finance for achieving a balanced budget in this very difficult situation when, in fact, we've only heard fairly recently what the grant cut was, so it required a lot of rework for him and his team. And I'm pleased that planning anticipates significant additional activity in the current year and will be able to make a larger contribution to the council's funds.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to comment? Thank you. Then there are 10 recommendations with the amended 3, which includes 3A. Are they agreed? Thank you very much. The next item is the draft capital fund programme for 2016-17. Councillor Ramsdale.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, this item concerns the General Fund Capital Programme, starting on page 53 of the document. It sets out the revenue project and capital schemes proposals for 2016-17. The capital programme proposes a mixture of investment in existing assets and services and utilising the new homes bonus to provide new and improved facilities. Headline items include budget approval for Broadwater Park improvements in Godalming, commitment to deliver a scheme to develop the Frensham Common Visitors Centre, continuing the playground replacement programme, commitment to explore the potential for the development of a new pavilion at Gosstree Meadow, Farnham, additional capital investment improving Waverley's car parks and a major project for the car park in High Street, Hazelmere, and continuing to provide £350,000 per annum for much needed disabled facilities grants. Leader, there are 4 recommendations on the agenda on page 5 and in the report on page 54 and 55. I commend these to the Executive.
Thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, any comments, please, at all? No, thank you. Well, on item number 7, there are 4 recommendations. Are they agreed? Agreed. We now have item 8, the Housing Revenue Account Business Plan. Councillor Ramsdale.
Thank you, Leader. I think it's the plan and indeed the budgets that go with it. This report covers the 30-year business plan and the revenue and capital budgets for 2016-17 for the housing revenue account specifically. We take a longer view with the HRA, or housing revenue account, because of the certainty of the rent income going forward and the need to ensure that we can manage the long-term debt and long-term capital investment. It is particularly important that we have a robust business plan so that we adequately invest in the existing homes for our tenants and are able to provide new homes for future generations. The major issue in 2016-17 and beyond is the government's unexpected announcement a few months ago that it will force social housing providers, like Waverley, to reduce their rents by 1% from 2016-17 for at least 4 years. This approach is completely at odds with the government's previous policy of encouraging inflationary increase in rent each year, which was what we had projected in our 30-year business plan, and set spending proposals against this. The government's decision has created a £1.3 million shortfall in the 2016-17 budget. More importantly, this proposal will take away £170 million of resource from Waverley's business plan projections over the next 25 years. On top of this, from 2017-18, the government will be forcing Waverley to sell off its high-value homes when they become empty and pass the money to central government. This will lose us a further £130 million. This money would have been spent on new affordable homes and on improving the existing stock, so it's a devastating blow. The assumptions behind the 2016-17 business plan are set out in Annex 3. The detailed budgets for the HRA are included in the annexes, and Annex 5 shows the proposed savings and growth in the budgets, which we discussed at the Star Chamber meeting. The report also sets out the draft capital programme for the HRA, split over the three main elements. The core capital programme includes investment in the current houses, including decent homes work. The other two programmes cover new affordable homes building and the reconfiguration of existing stock. The estimated spend in 2016-17 is £21 million. In the light of the government's sudden decision about social housing, as mentioned earlier, Annex 9 on page 95 shows the impact on Waverley's plans to invest money in new and improved affordable housing in the borough. Whilst 16-17's spend can be funded, future years are much less certain and fundamental reviews are needed. In summary, the impact of the government's changes on Waverley's business plan is extremely significant. And whilst I can support the 2016-17 budget and capital spending proposals being recommended to Council, we need a fundamental review of all aspects of the business plan and every line of the budget within HRA. And this is what is proposed in this coming year. Leader, there are 13 recommendations in the agenda on page 6 and in the report on page 69. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor King.
Thank you very much indeed, Leader. And thank you very much, the portfolio holder for finance, for a very difficult job. As he said, the government's actions, as far as our revenue is concerned, are a disaster for us. But I very much welcome the needed review of the housing revenue account and will ensure officers demonstrate creativity and innovation in the review to ensure that Waverley can continue to build new homes, improve and maintain our existing homes, and continue to provide improved services that meet the needs of our tenants, and in particular of our vulnerable tenants. We'll also expect officers to seek value for money, efficiencies and increased tenant satisfaction despite these budget constraints. I'm very pleased that next year we'll be able to continue to invest in our homes and build some new ones. Just under £9 million in the capital maintenance programme, that's highlighted on page 92, and £8.5 million in the new affordable homes programme on page 93. The programme demonstrates our ambition as social housing landlord despite the financial difficulties we're facing. The capital maintenance programme will ensure our homes are safe, compliant with health and safety legislation, compliant with decent home standard and meet the needs of all our residents. I'm also pleased to report the revenue budgets have not been reduced, as Councillor Ramsdale has said, and the proposed budgets will ensure we continue to deliver improved services into 2016 and 17. The list of savings is in Annex 5 and will have no negative effect on our services. In fact, the challenging reduction in our void rent loss will bring about a service improvement, a bit ironically, in that people will have to wait less time to get into a new home, I hope. Budgets for responsive repairs, voids and cyclical maintenance have been increased. It's a priority that we will continue to maintain and repair our homes. I fully recommend the proposed budget for the housing revenue account. It's a budget that delivers improved services, well-maintained homes, modern homes, and new homes. There will be challenges delivering the capital programme, but I will believe that we will be able to overcome them. The proposed review of the HR business plan needs to be innovative and deliver recommendations that enable Waverley to be an excellent landlord, and I'm sure we will achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Leader. I fully support what's been said by the colleagues either side of me. It is very disappointing to hear about the difficulties that have been forced upon us by the government, and it does seem to be that, that we're sort of almost returning to the dreaded negative housing subsidy that we had several years ago, and that was essentially so punitive to some of the least well-off in our communities. I do look forward to the results of the review over the next few months, and I hope it goes well.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think you've summed up quite well. These are difficult times with cuts like this on budgets that we've had, and as I've said before, with our grant going down dramatically this year and then very quickly to nothing, and then having to pay a subsidy out of the rates, bringing that huge loss. So when you put all this together, these are extremely difficult times, and we should continue to do our best to put Waverley first. Anybody else, please? Thank you. Then there are 13 recommendations to item number 8. Are they agreed? Agreed. Item 9, with just the one recommendation, is Treasury Management. Councillor Ramsdale.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, Treasury Management, starting on page 99 of the overall document. This report concerns the area where we manage the Council's investments, cash flows, money market transactions, and the effective control of the risks associated with those activities. The Council complies with the current Code of Practice on Treasury Management, brackets the Code, produced by CIPFA. The purpose of the Code is explained on pages 100 and 101. The key documents in line with the requirements of the Code are approved by the Council annually. These documents have been reviewed within the team, and we believe they continue to be appropriate and serve as well. Thus, they are largely unchanged. But they are as follows. There's a Treasury Management Policy Statement included at Annex 1, which sets out the headline objectives of Treasury Management. The Council's primary objective in relation to investments is the security of capital, followed by liquidity and then yield earned on these investments. Second is the Treasury Management Strategy of 1617, included at Annex 2, and sets out the way in which policy objectives will be achieved. The strategy on Annex 2 addresses investment risk on page 103, focusing on credit ratings, generally shorter fixed-term investments in sterling, and potentially investment in property. Thirdly, there's the Annual Investment Strategy 2016-17, included Annex 3, setting out how Waverley's investments will be managed, translating the Treasury Management Strategy into an operating strategy that specifies limits to ratings and maximum investment levels with individual institutions. And then the fourth, I'll come on to. The Local Government Act 2003 requires local authorities to comply with CIPFA's, that's the Chartered Institute of Public and Finance Accountants, Prudential Borrowing Code, which requires local authorities to agree a specified set of prudential indicators to support decision-making and the setting and measuring of performance targets. The prudential indicators are given in Annex 4. Leader, there is one recommendation on page 7 and in the report on page 101 that Executive recommends to the Council that the 2016-17 Treasury Management Policy, the 2016-17 Treasury Management Strategy, the Annual Investment Strategy for 2016-17 and the prudential indicators to 2018-90 be approved. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, members. Not expecting anybody to ask anything, no. It's quite detailed in the papers, thank you. There is one recommendation, is that agreed? Agreed. Item 10, the funding for voluntary sector organisations. Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Leader. I'm very pleased to present this report, which proposes continuing to protect Waverley's overall discretionary funding to the voluntary sector and to support them to deliver the vital services to some of our most vulnerable residents. Despite the huge cut of 52% in our grant from government for next year and the need to identify cost savings to balance our budgets, the proposal is to maintain our overall spending of £725,110 to the voluntary organisations so that they can continue to support our communities in 2016-17. The Council is extremely proud of its track record in financially supporting voluntary sector organisations. We work innovatively with our voluntary organisations by funding them through a traditional grant scheme, which is this one, service level agreements and a commissioning scheme to ensure that our residents receive a high quality service and value for money. As part of this package of support, the Executive are asked to consider the proposed grant levels for each organisation that applied to the Waverley Community Grant Scheme. You'll see that we had to make some very difficult decisions this year, and some organisations will be disappointed. The scheme is so popular that the requests for funding exceed the overall budget, and this year that was exceeded by over £116,000. So the panel's proposed allocation reflects the clear outcomes delivered by the organisations to our most vulnerable adults, including both older people and vulnerable families. I'd like to, at this point, also thank the Community ONS and the Grants Subcommittee for their work on this, because it is quite an arduous process. Now, the Council's funding schemes are highly regarded and demonstrate the great value we place on the work of high-performing voluntary services. Our support, however, is not just financial. The Council works with a huge number of voluntary organisations across the borough in many ways, such as developing community projects and services, facilitating links with other public sector organisations, and providing information and support. The Council remains committed to these organisations working on the Council's behalf to deliver high-quality services that meet local need. Now, we have one small change. Help in Enstead is one organisation which came to us for funding for £500. We agreed. They came back to us and actually said they'd made a mistake in their application and they only wanted and needed £400. So we have another £100 to spend. Sorry? Oh, it's in there. So the extra £100 has been reallocated to somewhere else. So I have three recommendations in the report, and I would like colleagues to support those.
Thank you very much. Councillor King.
Thank you very much, Leader. As the portfolio holder said, it was a difficult task this year as a member of the panel, and have been for several years. It was really a great pleasure this time to see that bodies that are seeking funding and have done over years have now recognised that this is basically seed funding to help them get on their feet and deliver really good services to our community, and to be able to help them to get on their way. They've done really, really well, and I think it's to be commended that Waverley is still able to support these organisations, get them up and running so they're viable and continue to deliver excellent services in the community. And actually, could I please add my thanks to Councillor Reynolds, also to Jane Todd, the officer concerned, because she does a tremendous amount of work every year to bring this report to fruition. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. From the papers and the time I know that has been spent on this, an awful lot of work has gone into it. Councillor Potts.
Thank you, Leader. Well, I think carrying on from the comments made by Councillor King, it really is good to see that in such difficult times, where we have a borough like Waverley, which is so diverse, so geographically varied as well, that we are able to support so many different voluntary groups and really help them in so many different ways to deliver to our residents, young and old, vulnerable, and I think it's a real measure of the excellent work done by the portfolio holder, but also the officer team supporting him and the panel in all the work that's gone in and continues to go in throughout the year in this area. Thank you.
Anyone else? In that case, there are three recommendations to agenda item 10. Are they agreed? Agreed. Item 11 is the annual pay policy statement for 2016-17. The Localism Act 2010 requires all public authorities to publish an annual pay policy statement, and this council is required to adopt the pay policy statement each year. It is a legal requirement as set out in the papers on page 143 to 145. Any comments, please? In that case, there is one recommendation. Is that agreed? Agreed. Item 12 is the Corporate Plan 2016-2019 on pages 147 to 154. There is a mock-up, and that's all it is. This is only to see what it looks like. This isn't the actual content, but there's a mock-up so you can see what it looks like. Councillor Fraser, you have your name down to speak, and you may speak for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Leader. I would like to recommend to the Executive that they would consider perhaps an addition to their otherwise excellently worded draft corporate plan for the coming 3 years. You will note at the bottom of draft page 2, below the bullet-pointed list of successes, from which I would not wish to detract in any way, I would like to read, by way of balance and openness and transparency, a counterpart list of, shall we say, unfinished business coming from the last plan, items that have not been covered adequately elsewhere. And I list them as follows. Over the life of the previous corporate plan, we, 1, failed to deliver the latest 5-year Strategic Housing Land Availability Assessment, or SHLA, for reasons which elude me, but never mind. I'm sure you'll find some. We also failed, number 2, 2 prior attempts at producing a local plan for Waverley, but we made some progress towards the preparation of a 3rd attempt. You could say then, after that, completion and submission of both items 1 and 2 above had been promised for April 2016 by the Head of Planning Services. That was done at the joint ONS meeting. Number 3, we have been unable to submit the result of suitable alternative natural green space, or SANG monitoring, as is required by the habitats regulations and our own avoidance strategy. Negotiations with Natural England, I understand, are still in hand, and a draft monitoring report has been received, but for some reason this has been found unacceptable. 4, we have been unable to report any real progress at all on our shovel-ready scheme to regenerate Farnham East Street. Again, negotiations with the other developers are in hand, I understand, and a progress report from the portfolio holder for this scheme is being prepared, if I'm not mistaken. I hesitate to continue. I think 4 bullet points in this manner are enough. But the Executive should feel at liberty, of course, to rephrase the offering that I render and make it more palatable. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fraser. As you're probably aware, you can't make recommendations to proposals because you aren't a member of the committee, but the members will have heard what you said, and your opportunity was to get these adopted, of course, at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I'm not quite clear what some of what you mean, because it seems a little unclear, but an updated strategic housing market assessment was completed last year following the publication of the government's latest household projections, and this is on the web. The strategic housing land availability assessment was completed in 2014 and is on the web. It is being updated and will continue to be updated and will be published alongside the local plan. And the local latest estimates is the council has a 4.3-year housing supply. The way for this to be addressed is to grant permission for further housing development, and that would be for the Joint Planning Committee to take into account when it assesses planning applications which come before it. There has been very significant progress on the local plan. The progress is documented in a number of reports to the Executive throughout last year. And with regard to the saying, the council will do what it has always done, which is to make decisions within the framework set by law and policy in respect of this issue, working with other relevant bodies, including Natural England. The corporate plan is to set out for the future. It's not really to to put in the kind of remarks that you suggest, because what we are doing, we are putting in that these will continue to be our objectives. This corporate plan sets out the Council's priorities for the next 4 years. The proposed content of the new plan is set out on page 149 to 154, and the initial design ideas have been placed in front of members of the committee this evening, and as I say, it's just a mock-up. We are proposing to focus on 4 main priorities: customer service, environment, community well-being and value for money. The details of the plan have been considered by a meeting of the Joint Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and their observations are set out in paragraph 5 of the covering report on page 148. So, some of the proposed changes would be consideration to be given to the inclusion of youth and young people in the document, inclusion of air quality, suggestions that achievement should be grouped under the same headings as priorities, and make reference in the document to Waverley working as part of an integrated hierarchy of local government with county towns and parishes. And as I say, those are set out on page 148. Colleagues, any views, please? No. Does that mean everybody's happy with it as it is? Councillor Ramsdale.
Yes, it does, Leader. Well, at least I am. I'm amazed at the suggestions we've had put to us, and I can't see... well, the most unusual corporate plan I've ever seen. If it started with some negative statements on the inside cover of the first page, I thought your answers were very clear, very good, and this is the sort of corporate plan stylised version that would go out to the residents, as would typically go out to members of staff or other people concerned with the large organisations. So I think it looks like a job nearly finished and well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are the Joint Overview and Scrutiny Committee recommendations at 5 on page 148. The youth and young people, of course, are a council responsibility, and as in fact is air quality. So it may be something that we note, but if we put it in our corporate plan, we are actually intruding on somebody else's ground. Whether we group things together, well, we could ask for advice on that. And references to working together as part of integrated hierarchy of local government, well, whether we put that in or not is a matter for you. There'll be a report later with regard to devolution, and we may want to take that into account as what happens in the next few weeks on that before we say who we're going to work with. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Leader. I'd be entirely comfortable to leave the corporate plan as it is. I think this is a very good document. I think it's succinct to the point. I think it bodes well for the next 4 years and gives us a direction in which to travel in. So I appreciate the comments from the Joint Overview and Scrutiny Committees, but I will be content to leave this as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Denis.
Thank you. I shall be talking shortly about the health and wellbeing strategy. Just wanted to make the point that does include youth and young people within that strategy. So we are looking at this age group in quite some detail.
Thank you. Councillor Potts.
Thank you, Leader. Just to come back to a point made by Councillor Fraser on the section marked Our Achievements. I think there is actually one point he's missed, and that very clearly states the new facility at Brightwells Tennis Club. And for anyone who's been down there or went to the opening and saw the new tennis club, where we've also, as well as rehousing the tennis club itself, we've also got the pay-as-you-go courts, which are tied in and booked via the leisure centre, an absolutely fabulous new facility. We've got the Riverside Walk down there. We've also got the additional Riverside car park, the new car park that's down there, all part of the enabling works towards the main Brightwell scheme. And what we shouldn't forget either is that both planning applications and the planning consent for that scheme have actually been implemented. So things are happening, maybe not as quickly as some would like to see, but as I have said and before, as soon as we have the financial offer which meets best consideration, that will be presented to members at a member briefing and then to council. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Thank you then. The corporate plan, I get the feel that you would wish to adopt it as in the draft form without amendment. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. The service plans 2016-17, these are set out on pages 155 to 162 of the agenda. The service plan objectives for each year of the council's main service area are set out for this, as I say, for the coming financial year. I'd like to thank the Joint Overview and Scrutiny Committee for their observations, which are set out on page 156 and 157. Colleagues, any comments, please? Thank you. In that case, we'll accept that as published, and that is item 13. There are two recommendations. Are they agreed? Agreed. Item 14 is an update on the 3 southern counties devolution proposals, and this is just to update the executive of the current position. This is something which the government calls devolution, and currently being looked at with East Sussex, Surrey and West Sussex. The documents in the agenda give a straightforward update of how the local devolution deal is progressing, and we're working to achieve the best for Waverley residents, because that is what the council is about. Given there is an opportunity to obtain benefit through devolution, we are investigating what is possible. However, whilst the government is pushing for a devolution deal in the next couple of months, the proposal lacks any detail. We don't know what's on offer, and we don't know the costs of achieving it. If it is possible, Waverley will be looking for individual council autonomy, no council being forced to join, one authority, one vote, a clear statement of benefit and costs, no council be required to participate in every initiative or project. There is no financial cost for councils where they are not participating in an individual project, and most importantly, as we've agreed in the past, no elected mayor. A copy of the report will be copied to all councillors after tonight's meeting. Any comments, please, colleagues? Councillor Adams.
Leader, I'd just like to ask a couple of questions. Does this report that's coming out, does that include a timetable that they anticipate concluding these discussions? And will each council have an option to stay in or stay out?
The first answer is no, because they don't know, because it's discussions with government and the dates change and it depends. And yes, it will be it will have to go to every council to agree, because there are recommendations in there, for example, about binding decision making. So a decision could be made in Hastings, for example, that will be binding on Waverley. So if we're going to go down that line, every council that's going to go into that has got to agree. It is not something that can just float in by the back door. So there's a lot of decision making. The most recent letter from the Minister, Baroness Williams, to the lead on this, which is West Sussex County Council, reads, it clearly says, please inform us what you will achieve extra to what you do now by doing this, because it's all about the government giving money, and clearly they are asking, well, why would they give money to do things that we're already doing? That is the latest letter, and obviously a timetable from that is dependent on the reply that goes back, which I haven't yet been privy to. Perhaps there hasn't been one. Councillor King.
Thank you, Leader. I think this is one of those times when the devil's really in the detail, but I would like to hope that whatever the outcome is, the welfare and benefit of our residents is paramount in Waverley. Thank you.
And I say absolutely, that is our bottom line throughout. That is the bottom line, as is no elected mayor. Councillor Ramsdale.
Councillor King's virtually said what I was going to say, but the need to look for the benefits to our people. I was going to pick up on little paragraph 7. It's clear that Waverley's participation is dependent on Waverley receiving benefits from any devolution deal, and if Graham and other officers haven't already picked it up, I don't think it's a fluke that financial benefits is the next line. It'll certainly be the thing I'll be looking for. So I think your balanced approach of staying involved, finding out what's happening, but not making any commitments is what I'd like to strongly support. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. And you'll note the letter that I've referred to after page 166 as Annex 1 from the Minister, which says that quite clearly there what areas could already, it doesn't quite make sense, and what the area could already do without devolved powers or funding. So it's basically asking, well, why can't you do this without, as you'll see. So there are further meetings, and I will report back to you not only on what happens at the meetings, but the feelings of other districts, because it will depend how many other districts want to go into this as well. You may be aware that the collapse completely in Dorset quite recently, and it isn't happening there. So that is the position. There are 2 recommendations. Item 14, are they agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 15 is the Health and Wellbeing Strategy 2016-2021. Councillor Denis.
Thank you, Leader. This strategy demonstrates how Waverley Borough Council and its partners support the health and wellbeing of all residents, including children, young people, families, adults and older adults. The strategy identifies key priorities and activities to be delivered. I'm sure Councillor Ramsdale will be delighted these will be delivered within existing capital and budgets. There are five key priorities: developing a preventative approach, promoting emotional well-being and mental health, improve older residents' health and well-being, improve the health and well-being of children and young people, and safeguarding the population. On the 19th of January 2016, the Community Overview and Scrutiny Committee considered the draft strategy and observed a concern that there was no mention of utilising the planning system, not in isolation, but alongside all service areas. This will be done so. The committee applauded the hard work that has been done, and I would also thank the staff who have worked so hard to produce such an effective document. There is one recommendation on page 9 and on page 173 of the report, which I respectfully request that you support. Thank you, Leader.
Good, thank you very much. Councillor King.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Councillor Denis in actually getting this strategy to the Executive and on to Council. But I'd just like to make one comment, if I may, as portfolio holder for children and young people. I'm really pleased to see that they've been included, but I would like to very much highlight mental health issues or lack of mental health support in the borough for that particular age group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ramsdale.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to congratulate my colleague and his officers on what they've produced here. I'm, as he suggested, delighted that he's doing it all within the finance available. Well, perhaps more importantly, I'm delighted that we have enough finance available for him to do so much, and I'm delighted at how much bang he's getting for our bucks from the report and what's planned in the years going forward.
Thank you. Item 15, one recommendation. Is that agreed? Agreed. Item 16, Starter Homes Local Authority Funding Programme. Councillor King.
Thank you very much indeed. The council, Waverley bid for funding through the Local Authority Starter Homes Funding Programme for some funding to prepare land, 2 small parcels of land in the borough, one in Godalming and one in Farnham, for the development of starter homes. And we seek approval, please, to enter into a funding agreement with the Homes and Communities agent for the grant allocation of £124,000. You'll see in the recommendations on page 233, I'm seeking, we want to sign, I would like to have the agreement signed so that we can actually receive the grant. I'd like approval, please, to be able to submit planning application in due course, and also approval be given for the disposal of the site for starter homes at best consideration to a private developer or build contractor. Obviously, price has to be good value for money for Waverley. Thank you.
Thank you. Those sound very, very sensible suggestions. Any comments, members, please? 3 recommendations. Are they agreed? 17 is legislation changes affecting the private rented sector. Councillor King.
Thank you. There have been 4 main key changes in legislation intended to improve the rights of private tenants against bad management practices and retaliatory evictions, and to reduce the risk of injury or death from fire or carbon monoxide poisoning. And these were recently introduced. The purpose of the report is to enable the private sector housing team to implement the new regulations, their enforcement procedures, which actually need some amendment. The scheme of delegation therefore requires amending as outlined in recommendation 1, and the statement of principles for determining financial penalties also needs to be adopted. That's in recommendation 2. The team currently have an additional staff resource to support them through the winter months when demand on their services is at its highest. But the impact of the new legislation on the capacity of the team will need to be monitored very carefully over the next 12 months. The Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee have looked at this on the 26th of January and had no further observations. Thank you.
Thank you. It seems like something that we've just got to do, so there are 2 recommendations. Are they agreed? Agreed. 18 is the disposal of council dwellings and carrying out major works. Councillor King.
You always save the best things for last, don't you? This report and its annex, which is an exempt, so I'd be careful not to stray there, is our seeking for permission to dispose of 8 Waverley Housing Revenue Account properties on the open market. These properties need extensive works to bring them up to a decent home standard. And in actual fact, the value of the money would be throwing good money after bad if we actually tried to bring them up to standard. But as a development potential someone, they're a very good opportunity, and it will generate some good capital receipt for us within our asset management strategy. There are 3 other properties, however, that are shown in Exempt Annex 1, which have come through. We can actually manage to do the refurbishment work from our 2016-17 stock remodelling reserve, which would mean we'd be able to move forward and re-let, but we would like to therefore let them at an affordable rent of up to 80% of open market value, which will recoup some of the value. The tendering refurbishments for these 3 properties, and we'd like to appoint some contractors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments? Councillor Ramsdale.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like very much to support the proposals for this item. I've been present on the board that looked at these in detail, and certainly it was my view that the items we're recommending disposal for are items that it's not our area of expertise to be struggling with very difficult properties, but to release those to the open market. And we do have lots of good cases to be investing our funds in, which we've both looked at before. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Item 18, there are 3 recommendations. Are those agreed? Agreed. 19 is the appointment of an overview and scrutiny subcommittee to look at Meals on Wheels. The members are listed there. Is it agreed? Agreed. 20, the Executive Director's actions.
No actions this month, Leader, on this category.
Thank you very much. I now propose that, pursuant to Procedure Rule 20 and in accordance with Section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following items on the grounds set out in the agenda. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you.